Good morning. I'm Tara Bollinger. I'm the co-founder of Unbreak Me and the director of Inspire School Programs, and I'm so excited to be with you this morning. The story you just heard is my story, and it's a story of darkness, of violence. But the amazing thing about the God we serve is that God doesn't let the story stop there. He writes more. And in the next chapter of that story, there's hope, and there's healing, and there's togetherness, and there's unity, and there's peace, and there's joy. Isaiah 58 says this. He says, if you extend your soul to the hungry, in verse 10, he says, and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the light. You see, the amazing thing that God has done in my life is taken something that was dark and violent and terrible and has changed it to be something that can be light into darkness amongst our youth. I am so excited that we are bringing our programs to Cedar Hill and to the schools here. You see, 5 years ago, we set out on this journey to try to change a generation, to say what can be done, who can stand up, who can go where the kids are at in the public schools and see if we can make a difference, see if we can change something. So in the last 5 years, we've created 3 programs. The first one's called Radiant Girls. There's 2 different programs. We go in once a week for 12 weeks. Manhood, value, and purpose, and we go in and teach young men what it means to be a true man. And of course, Unbreak Me, which is an answer to sexual violence, a multimedia assembly program for girls, offering hope for victims and awareness to the topic. Through these programs, we've had the opportunity to reach hundreds and now thousands of students. And I'm so excited that God has opened the doors of opportunity here in Cedar Hill. You see, the kids come with such terrible, heartbreaking stories. And the truth is, what they're hearing spoke over them is not hope and life and purpose and destiny. It's just more negativity, more problems. There's plenty of people talking about the problem, but there's very few offering solutions. And that's what we've been called to do. One of the stories is that at the end of the school year, it was all over the newspaper and the news stations in St. Louis. We work in a really tough district, borders East St. Louis. We have schools in East St. Louis, and it's one of the most violent cities in the nation. And the story was this young man was in 8th grade, and at the end of the school year, they found him. He had hung himself. I immediately, as soon as I heard the story, picked up the phone and called my assistant and said, is this one of our kids? Is he one of ours? You see, it wasn't just, who is this kid? When we go into those schools, those are our kids. Those are our students. And it wasn't just some random headline to me. That was potentially one of our kids. Well, the story turns out she made some phone calls and found out that we were in that school, but the school had told us at the beginning of the semester the boys didn't need the program, just the girls. So we weren't allowed to go in that semester and work with the boys. And my heart sank. Because what could have happened if they had given us the chance for 12 weeks to speak over that young man life and purpose and hope and future? Do you know those things, when spoken over somebody's life, they can take root and they can change the course of their destiny forever? That's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to God. Because the words that can be spoken over these kids can literally change their life. And it could be, in some instances, the difference between life and death. The story continues. His girlfriend at 14 became pregnant with his baby. And that fall, we had her in one of our classes. And we were able to speak over her life. And she kept the baby. And we were able to speak that she still had a future. So we not only impacted her life, but the life of the next generation. And that's what God has called us to do. That's why it's so important. Just like Jesus, we aren't called to just talk about the problem. We're called to answer the problem. You see, in Isaiah 58, it goes on to say in verse 12, those from among you shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. And you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. You see, the repairer of the breach, I looked that up. It means repairer of the failure, repairer of the wound. It means that there is a wounded generation that needs to be repaired, and God has put the mandate upon us to do it. You see, that word repairer of the breach, it also meant to be in the front lines, to stand in the gap. It was the most dangerous place to be at, because it was the place that bridged the gap between you and the enemy. It was the place where the bravest soldiers had to be sent because of the imminent peril. That is the mandate that God has called us to do, to go and to stand in the gap, to be the ones that stand up and say, it's not okay. It's not okay that 14-year-old boys hang themselves. It's not okay that 12-year-old girls get pregnant. You know, in that district where we worked, we had quite a few girls, and the district had such a big problem with teen pregnancy, and they didn't know what to do. They had tried so many programs that had failed them. And we said, give us a shot. When we went in, there were 12 girls in the 7th and 8th grade that were pregnant, and 2 of them at 14 were on baby 2. How many of you know that 14-year-olds with 2 babies, not a good situation, and the district had no idea what to do? But we went in and began to teach value and respect and all of those heart conditions. And 4 years later, we didn't have a single girl get pregnant this school year. Not one in the entire district. But that only happened because we stood up and said, it's not okay. It's not okay with us that 12-year-olds get pregnant. It's not okay for kids to cut themselves and hurt themselves. It's not okay that 1 in 4 girls is sexually abused before the age of 18. That's not okay. But most of all, it's not okay for the church to say nothing. It's not okay for us to be quiet. That is not what Jesus has called us to do. God has put the mandate upon us. And this morning, will you answer the call? And will you be the repairer of the breach for your community?